And I also want to let you know that I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone now, but you are more than welcome to ask questions, Jackie said, along the way. So if any time you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, that's okay. You can raise your hand either in participants or with reaction, and I will try and catch you and let Jackie know there's a question, or you can write your question in the chat and we will be sure to get to it. So there's multiple ways to ask questions. I only ask that if you unmute yourself, that you remute yourself after you ask the question so that everybody can hear what Jackie has to say. So why are you here tonight? You are most likely here because your sisterhood members like to pay with something or would like to pay with something other than a check, which a lot of people want to do these days, or you have to ask your synagogue when you need help with credit cards, when you want to take credit cards. So the methods that Jackie is going to present tonight are going to help you to have more diverse and be more independent in your sisterhood with dues collection, but not only dues collection, I think they're also going to help you in collecting fundraising monies and event RSVP funds. So I want to start by telling you a little bit about Jackie Zev, our special guest tonight. Jackie is our current WRJ district treasurer. She's also a past president and past treasurer for the Sisterhood of Temple Avat Shalom in Northridge, California. Currently, she is technology chair, Honey fundraiser chair, and First Friday lead ONIC hostess for the Sisterhood of Temple Avat Shalom. She's also Avodah chair for the Temple's religious school, treasurer and technology chair for the San Fernando Valley branch of the American Association of University Women, AAUW. She's a board member for the Engineers Council of the San Fernando Valley, and she provides technological support for the Friends of Platt Library in Southern California. Jackie earns her keep as a software engineer and manager at Northrop Grumman. And in her spare time, if you believe she has any spare time, I don't, she's interested in genealogy, quilting, knitting, and reading. She's been married to her best friend, Mark, for 32 years, and they have 2 awesome kids in their mid-20s. And with that, here is Jackie Zev.
Thank you for the reminder that I should unmute myself. And let me rearrange my screen a little bit. Okay. So let me start with a disclaimer. There are a lot of companies that you can use to take payments that I don't know anything about. And there are a lot of ways to take payments that I also don't know anything about. I'm only going to give you a sample of what you can do to get you started. I'll give you some cautions to hopefully keep you out of trouble. And let me say up front that everything changes really fast these days. And it's a sure bet that there are things in this talk that are already out of date. And if they're not out of date now, then a month later, when you go to implement some of them, they'll be out of date then. So you have to do your due diligence. I'm going to focus on PayPal and Square and Zelle and Venmo. There's a bunch more companies that take credit card payments, but there's just not enough time to go into all of them. And mostly those are the ones I know the best. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to talk about the different services that they provide. I'm going to talk about money storage, credit card processing, website buttons, and money transfers. And I'll give you some concrete how-to details on how to set up buttons on a website, which hopefully won't scare you. You do need to be technologically savvy in order to set up website buttons to take payments. And I'll talk about setting up Zelle. I'm happy to take questions during the talk, at the end of the talk, and even weeks later when you go, oh, let's try and do this, and you run into questions, give me a call, send me an email, that's fine. Okay, so PayPal, Square, Zelle, Venmo, and all the other companies, they provide services with the goal of transferring money from someone else's account into your account. So let's start by taking a look at the services focusing on these four. So money storage. Money storage is an account that holds money. It could be a bank account, credit card account, but PayPal and Square, they also hold their money, hold your money. Zelle and Venmo, they don't hold your money. So credit card processing, both PayPal and Square provide processing services. Zelle and Venmo do not. And PayPal and Square provide the capability to do website buttons and links, which Zelle and Venmo do not. And PayPal and Square can do money transfers. So why not just use one of them? Well, we'll get to that. And lastly, you notice there's this little X down here at the intersection of bank accounts and money transfers. That is your good old-fashioned check. A check is a money transfer from one account to another. So I'm going to talk about each of these services: money transfer, credit card processing, website buttons, and money transfers in turn. So money storage. So money storage could be a bank account or a credit union, but any company that holds your money does money storage. In fact, my sisterhood took a bunch of credit card money using PayPal, and so it was stored in the PayPal account, and they very deliberately left it there because it was for a specific event, which did not happen because of COVID. So they left it there until the event happened to separate that from the rest of the money. So you can use the different accounts to for various purposes. Then when you set up a PayPal account or a Square account, then you will connect it to a bank account. And so it's easy to transfer money back and forth. And an important distinction between credit card processors and money transfer companies is that money transfer companies do not store your money. Your treasurer is going to be presumably using some software, probably QuickBooks, because most treasurers are accountants and accountants prefer QuickBooks, but maybe Quicken, maybe something else. In that software, I recommend that an account be set up in the software for any company that stores money. So if you're getting money through PayPal, I recommend that you set up an account for PayPal, just like you set up an account for your bank account, and just like you set up an account for your credit card in Quicken or QuickBooks, whatever software you use. So for Zelle or Venmo, which are money transfer companies, the funds go directly from the person paying you into your account. They don't sit in a Zelle account, and so you don't need to set up an account in Quicken or QuickBooks for those. But enough of money storage. Let's talk about credit card processing. So there are 3 ways to accept credit cards. You can use a card reader. You can manually enter the card number, expiration date, and CVC into the software that the credit card processor uses, or you can use a website button. Now, there are 2 types of card readers. There are magstrip readers. So these first 2 things, can you see my, my pointer? Yeah. So these 2, this is a PayPal magstrip reader, and this is a Square magstrip reader. Those plug into, let's see if this will work. So they plug into the audio jack on your phone, and then you swipe your card like that, or a tablet. You can use a phone or a tablet. Then you have chip readers. So here's an example of a chip reader. And for a chip reader, you take the card that has a chip and you insert it into the chip reader. So a caveat is that if the card has a chip and you can use it on either a chip reader or a magstrip reader, but there's more security if you use a chipped card on a chip reader. If you use a magstrip reader to read a card that has a chip, there's less security against fraud. Now for us,
Jackie, that chip reader for PayPal, it also has a magstrip on it, reader on it.
correct. You could, let's see if I can, should I take down my background? I can't find it. You can do that. Right,
I've never
but
used it. I know it's there.
you should, if you have a chip reader, you should always use the chip reader to read a card with a chip because of the extra security that you get against fraud. Now, these devices are not free, and the chip readers, so you can often get a magstrip reader for free, but I don't know of any company that gives you a chip reader for free, which I don't know a lot about companies. You might be able to get a chip reader for free. So then on the drawing, so the magstrip readers and the chip readers connect to a tablet or a phone. The magstrip readers use the audio jack and plug into your phone or tablet. The chip readers connect via Bluetooth. They've also come out with devices that don't need to have a tablet or a phone. And so they're very convenient. You just have the one device. And the disadvantage is that these are much more expensive than these magstrip readers are on the order of like $50 each. And these devices are in the order of $100 each. So you have to balance the money with how often you're going to be using it. One thing is that they all use an app, and the app is going to be specific. You're going to use the app to log into your account. The device, the magstrip reader or the chip reader doesn't know anything about your account, which means that you can use any magstrip reader for your company. So if you have one and your men's club has one and the temple has 3, you can borrow them all and use them at whatever event you're using them at. Because it's the application that cares about your account, not the device. Marlene, did I see that you raised your hand? Do you have a question?
Yeah, okay. So at first I heard that the magstrip readers are often free, but then I heard that some are $50 and then
The chip readers
are often $100.
The chip readers, the chip readers are typically in the 50. I haven't looked for a long time because we have, half a dozen of them, but the chip readers they used to be like $50. And these devices that mean that you don't need a tablet, that they're all self-contained, those are in the hundreds of dollars, a couple hundred maybe. I haven't looked in a while, so my numbers are probably, but certainly there's an increasing cost as you go across the screen.
The chip reader for PayPal, it was $25 because I had ordered a bunch for a client, and then the next day or so I got one and they sent it to me for free. I'm not quite sure why, but they did because I needed it because my little triangle thing died.
I do know that I just got the, I can't point to it, but the self-contained one for Miriam Circle. And we were able to say that we were a nonprofit through PayPal and get it. It's usually $79 and they gave me a $50 discount. So it was only $29.
Nice.
Nice.
So I do think that if you go on and you have to call, you can't do it through the website. I tried to find it on the website. You actually have to call PayPal, but you can try and say you're a nonprofit. You have to prove it through article of incorporation or some kind of documentation, and then you might be able to get a discount.
Well, if you're set up with them with PayPal, I mean, set up with PayPal as, if your account is a nonprofit, I would think that
Right.
you also get a better percentage rate too.
Yes, and it is well worth jumping through the hoops, and it is a pain to get yourself set up with PayPal as a nonprofit, because it will save you a lot of money in the long run. So let me talk about taking credit cards using a reader. So the big advantage to card readers is that they're much faster than using a web button, because you just enter the amount, you swipe or enter the card, and you have the person sign. Whereas for a website, there's a whole ton of information that has to be entered, and it takes time. So it makes them ideal for in-person events where there might be a big line of people waiting to pay, and so you want it to be fast. Something like Judaica shops, or we use them every year at our holiday boutique, or anytime you have vendors at an event where you're going to have a lot of people paying at once, where you're taking entrance fees for an event, or if you have a meeting where you're going to be getting people to pay dues, so you're going to have a lot of people who want to pay. That's when card readers are really useful. But they have the disadvantage that hardware is needed. You need the mag strip or the chip reader. You need tablets or phones to connect them to. You need electricity. You need Wi-Fi, which it's always a good idea to be prepared to have a hotspot backup in case the Wi-Fi goes down. And I highly recommend that if you're going to have a number of devices, to have more tablets than you need, because then you can leave some plugged in and charging while you're using other ones. And when one of them runs out of juice, you can swap them out. We always try and have an octopus of cords so we can have them plugged in while we're using them. And a little piece of advice that you should do some preparation before your event. You should download the software ahead of time into each device, because software has to be downloaded into each device. And not only the tablets, but the readers themselves. These have to be charged. And I don't think these don't. These don't have to be charged, but the chip readers have to be charged ahead of time. So the day before the event, I always have, 6 chip readers sitting on my desk, all plugged in, charging. So using a card reader versus using a web button. So the card readers, like I was saying, minimizes the data entry. You just enter the amount, swipe, sign, but you have to be in person because someone needs to hand you a card. You do need an internet connection and electricity, but they are cheaper. If you're using PayPal and you have nonprofits, I'll be talking about the fees in a minute, but if you have nonprofit status and you're using PayPal, using a card is cheaper. If you're using a web button or a link, you have to enter a lot of information, but the person paying can be anywhere. They don't have to be with you. So, and there again, you need an internet connection, but because you can be anywhere, that's usually not a problem. So one thing is, if you are in person and you're taking cards and you lose electricity or you lose the internet, you can take down all the information and then later on enter it using your web button. So let's talk a little bit about processing fees. This is kind of an eye chart, so bear with me here. So here I'm comparing PayPal and Square. If you want to compare Stripe or any of the other dozen companies, you're on your own. Each of them have two parts to the fee they charge. There's a percentage, and then there's a fee per transaction for each transaction. So for example, if you're using a card and a card reader, PayPal charges 2.7% plus, I think on the, anyways, 2.7%, and there's no actual per transaction fee. So you can swipe, if you have the card reader, you can swipe the card. You can actually manually enter the card without swiping it as well. And for both PayPal and Square, that's more expensive. It's more expensive, a higher percentage and a higher fee than either using a card reader or using a website button. And that's because manual entry is riskier than either using a card reader or using a website button. If you're using a card reader, having a physical card gives you an extra assurance that there's no fraud. If you're using a website button, you have to enter a lot of information. You have to enter more information than if you're doing manual entry, and that provides a level of security. So because manual entry is riskier for the company, they charge a higher fee. So in general, you should try and avoid manual entry and stick to either swiping the card or chipping the card or using a website button. So comparing PayPal to Square, because Square has this small transaction fee. So here I have two comparisons. Say a person wants to pay $10. Then in this case, the PayPal fee is actually cheaper by 10 cents. If they're paying $100, it's actually cheaper just by 5 cents. For a website button, if you have the nonprofit rate for PayPal, which I highly recommend, then PayPal is clearly cheaper. For a $10 charge, it would be $7 cheaper. For a $100 charge, it would be 70 cents cheaper. So, and then I put in this just to indicate that if you're taking any payments from Canada, which WRJ Pacific District does, the fees are different. If you look on their website, there's at least a dozen other possible cases where you would get charged different fees that I did not include. These are the two most common that you would use, a card reader or a website button. So this is, and actually for manual entry, the Square is slightly cheaper. And for, if you're taking payments from Canada, then Square is cheaper. But these two lines in green is why for both the organizations where I set them up to use either PayPal or Square, we're using PayPal because for most of the transactions, PayPal is cheaper. So let's talk about web buttons. We've talked about money storage. We've talked about credit cards. Let's talk about web buttons. You can use web buttons either for taking credit card payments or for taking PayPal or Square payments. Website buttons can't be used for money transfers. Money transfers have to be initiated by the payer. So there's a difference between a PayPal money transfer and a PayPal payment. You'll see this is a small image from one of my very first screens where I indicated that you can do web buttons using PayPal and you can do money transfers using PayPal, and they're different. And so let's talk about the difference. The difference, so PayPal or Square payments are initiated by the organization receiving the money, either using a button or using a link. And there is a cost, and the cost is paid by the organization receiving the money. So it's paid by your sisterhood. Money transfers are initiated by the person who's paying, and there's no cost if they're done correctly. So if you're using PayPal or Square to make a money transfer, you have to indicate that no goods or services were received for this money transfer in order for it to be free. So here's an example. Oh, hey, what happened to my? Oh, never mind.
Marlene has a question, Jackie.
Oh, go ahead,
I'm
Marlene.
sorry, I'm always the question person. So can you give me an example of what a money transfer would be? I'm really not clear on this.
Oh, well, okay, so my next slide is all about money transfers. So money transfers, remember I said at the beginning that there's this square down here that where bank accounts and money transfers intersect, and those are checks, your good old fashioned checks. Well, money transfers are just electronic checks.
Okay.
Electronic checks are a way of transferring money from one account to another. Money transfers are electronic checks.
Okay.
And so the advantages of money transfers is that there's no fee. The disadvantage is that the payer has to initiate them. So take PayPal. If for a PayPal money transfer, the person who's giving you the money logs into their PayPal account, and there's something called give to friends and family. And they start that and they say, I want to give money to Temple Ahavat Shalom Sisterhood, and they specify the amount and the money, and they say there's no goods and services for this, and the money is transferred. So the payer logs into their account and initiates the transfer that way. For a PayPal payment, the sisterhood can send them a link or make a button on a website. They click on that button, and then they're taken to their PayPal account where they log in and say, yes, I approve this transfer. So it seems like the difference is pretty subtle, right? In both cases, they log into their PayPal account. In both cases, they authorize PayPal to make the transfer. But the difference between you sending them a button or a link and them doing it without that is you paying a fee. Another big difference, so a lot of people don't know how to initiate transfers. That's the advantage of having a button, because then you initiate it. But as time goes on, that's going to change, and more people get used to initiating money transfers. And so I see that as a short-term problem. And now there's a big difference between these various companies that do money transfers in terms of how much information you get about the payee. In a check, you get their name, and the check's going to have their address, maybe a phone number on it. If you get a money transfer using Zelle or Venmo, then this is all the information you get. You get the sender's name, you get the amount, and if they put in a memo, then you get the memo. You're told who they sent it to, but not what email address they sent it from, because Zelle doesn't necessarily know. So this is a very limited amount of information. It can be difficult to connect up a payment with, if someone says, I'm going to pay you this much money, it can be difficult to connect this up. Notice that here it says, Zev Family Trust. It might have the woman's husband's name on it. It might have her business name on it. So, and I'll be talking about how you deal with that in some of the coming slides. So another difference between these various, between Zelle, PayPal, and check is how quickly you get the money. For Zelle and Venmo, it's typically within minutes. They make the payment, it shows up, not always, and I'll talk about that in a minute. A check, I don't know about your sisterhood, but any check that we get into the bank within a week is fast. So, and that's a big difference between 5 minutes and a week. And so there's also now, so let me talk a little bit about the risks involved in money transfers. Everyone knows about the risk of bounced checks. We've been dealing with that for years. And let me talk about payee data entry, and then I'll take your question, Linda. With electronic money transfers, there's a risk of people not putting in the information correctly. So you can see that here it says Zelle@TASsisterhood.org is where Zev Family Trust sent the money. At the Holiday Boutique, someone paid us using Zelle and put in Zelle@TASsisterhood.com instead of .org. Well, fortunately, Zelle doesn't have a Zelle@TASsisterhood.com registered with them. And so the money went nowhere. But there is a TAS Sisterhood in Florida who have a website called TASsisterhood.com. So they could have set up a Zelle@TASsisterhood.com, in which case the money would have gone to them. And Zelle will not help you get the money back. You have to talk to them and get it back from them. So now this is really only an issue the first time someone tries to make a payment to you. After the first time, their account will remember what email address is associated with your account, and then they'll just say, I want to send it to TAS Sisterhood, and it will use the proper email address. So, but it is something to be aware of, that this is something you have to deal with. Okay, Linda, did you have a question?
You made a point of talking about the timing for getting money from Zelle and Venmo versus a check, but you didn't mention PayPal and Square, or if you
Well,
did,
they're in the middle.
they're the same as Zelle.
So
and
it's more than 5 minutes, but it less than a week. And so, yeah, they're in the middle.
Okay, thank you.
And for Zelle and Venmo, the money goes into your account directly. So if you have an interest, no?
My Venmo goes right to my Venmo and I have to move it.
I did not, okay, I did not know that.
My PayPal, I get instantaneously too, when my clients are sitting in front of me and we pop the card in the reader and it comes within a couple minutes and when it works right. Yeah, they're both, I just have to transfer, but Venmo has been bought out by PayPal and they will be charging. I don't know when and I don't know how much.
No way. Well, like I said, everything I tell you changes. Uh-oh, your audio is breaking up.
I don't know, maybe a month or two ago
and the time to
oh,
get money is
you-
not a guarantee. We told people they could pay via Zelle at the Holiday Boutique, which was on a Sunday. And only 3 people paid via Zelle, fortunately. The one was the person who put in .com instead of .org. And so fortunately, she was a long-standing member of the temple. And so we were able to get that resolved. But the other two, neither one came in within a couple of minutes. Both of them took at least a day, maybe 2 days for the Zelle transfer to go through, during which we were sweating because these were a payment for goods that they had already taken. So I actually recommend against using Zelle or Venmo at any time when it's a time-sensitive event. I think I have something on that coming up.
Money into your Venmo account or the time it goes from Venmo to your bank? Because going from.
No, well, we were using Zelle and the money did not transfer for at least 24 hours.
I don't know much about Zelle. I shy away from it just because my mother's bank account got hacked and they were using Zelle. So I don't even use it. But when people my clients Venmo me, I can see it instantaneously. Now,
Usually. Well, and every other time I've used Zelle, it's been essentially instantaneous within a minute or two.
but when you transfer Venmo from the Venmo to, and it does hold your money until you move it.
Mhm.
And then I move it from Venmo to my bank account, takes 1 to 3 days, just like PayPal.
So Venmo, so actually there should be an X up here that Venmo, not
It-
under Venmo actually is a money storage.
Can,
So I did not know that.
yeah, you can.
Okay, so, oh, hang on, I'm on the wrong slide. Oh, yeah, no, this is right.
Oh,
I got ahead of myself here. Okay, so money transfers require a bank account and you have to set them up with either an email or a phone number. I recommend an email. I'll get into that in a minute. And then the payer has to set up their bank account to send transfers, which essentially, I mean, if you're using PayPal, then the person has to have a PayPal account. So, so in order to make the payment, the payer logs into their account online and uses their bank's website or Venmo account to make the transfer. And the payer needs the email address or phone number that you set up to make the payment. So, one last thing about money transfers, there are limits, and the limits on how much they can transfer in a week, and the limits appear to be dependent on the payee's bank. So-
Jackie, I think Karen Marcus had a question for you.
Okay,
yeah,
Go ahead.
Jackie, I looked up the idea of setting up a Zelle account with through our bank about 6 months ago. And I was told that our bank was only doing it personal to personal accounts. And since they classified our nonprofits as a business account, that it wasn't possible to do. Now you're saying those things are changing, and
Yes.
I think our bank is also being bought out by another bank shortly too, so that might change the situation. So do you think that down the line won't be a problem for us, or have you had any experience with that?
What bank is it?
Well, it's a local One West Bank, but I think they're going to be bought out by some Federal Credit or something like that. I'm not sure the new name, but it's a small local bank. We've had that for years, that bank account, so.
Karen, I don't want to correct you, but it's
Mhm.
One Western, it's a division of CIT. So it's
Right,
not
but-
a local bank.
Yeah, but they're gonna be bought out by another bank in a couple
Yeah.
months. Yeah. So, I mean, I can go in there again and find out, so maybe that won't be an issue with the. new
right.
bank.
That's my recommendation is ask again.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me talk about Venmo and Zelle. So my first caution. Well, and Venmo and Zelle can be really useful because the people who like Venmo and Zelle, they love using it. They'd much rather do that than a check. They'd rather do that than PayPal. So it expands the clientele that will want to use your services. But my first caution is don't set it up with a personal email address. I was giving advice to a sisterhood, and they got their Zelle set up with a personal email address, and it's a bad idea. So for the first reason is that you're going to be accepting, hopefully, payments that are tax deductible. And if your payments are going to kathycohen@gmail.com, then when the IRS audits this person and says, oh, you made a payment to kathycohen@gmail.com, they're going to have a hard time convincing them that, no, really, it's a nonprofit. For my sisterhood, we set ourselves up with Zelle@tssisterhood.org. WRJ Pacific District is going to use treasurer.wrjpd@gmail.com. So the second reason not to use a personal account is that now Kathy Cohen can't use this email address to take Zelle or Venmo herself because it's set up with your sisterhood. But neither of those are really the important reason why you should not use a personal account. Really, the reason is that your treasurer is not going to be your treasurer forever. And changing email addresses associated with a Zelle or Venmo can be a nightmare because the people who use them will save that email address into their phone, into their account. And so even if you tell them that, no, it's changed, you have to change it, they're going to not do it. And so you're going to be dealing with the nightmare. You want an email address that can be the same email address, regardless of who you have as treasurer for forever until Zelle goes belly up and you use something else.
I have one more reason for you. Being that I am a bookkeeper and tax person, if you use your personal Social Security, guess who's going to pay the tax on all that money that you're accepting? You need to use the EIN of the temple or whoever, because if you use your own, and I've seen it happen, the IRS audited a client, he owed like $35,000. When I got done with him, they owed him. But because he was using his personal Social Security on a nonprofit baseball thing that he set up with his kid or for his kids, that you can't use your own personal stuff.
And I highly recommend you set up an email address specifically for Zelle or Venmo, like we did here, because you can then take this email address and forward it to, so you could forward it to as many people as you want. So that email address could be forwarded to the treasurer and the president and the finance secretary, and each one of them would get notified when a payment was made. And then when those people change, you just change the forward and the new people get it. So, I also caution you about accepting transfers for time-sensitive payments because if the payment doesn't transfer right away, then you don't have a lot of recourse. So it's fine when people are paying in advance for an event, because if it takes a day for the payment to go through, that's not a problem. But if you take Zelle or Venmo for day of events, then I highly recommend collecting lots of contact information in case they don't go through. For example, the case of the person who put in the wrong email address. And so we it took us a long time to figure out what the problem was there and why that payment wasn't going through. So, and remember that I don't know what Venmo does, but Zelle provides very limited information. So you want to collect a lot of information about these Zelle payments in addition to the payment itself. So, and finally transfer, sorry,
Sorry, do you take?
I
it?
should not rest this on the keyboard. Transfer limit supply. On the other hand, your worst problem should be that someone wants to give you $10,000 via Zelle and can't because of the transfer limits. So,
Take that information down by hand because you can't put it into Venmo.
right, you can't put it, you have to take it down by hand.
Okay.
So when we went to set up Venmo, we ran into a problem that a cell phone is required to set up the account, which then can't be used to set up another account. I have not looked into this further. Whether you can, do you know, Barbara, can you use a cell phone to set up the account and then disassociate the cell phone with that account?
It wasn't so much my cell phone, it was, I think, I set up a Venmo account for my business.
Yeah,
And so I don't have a personal one to go to my personal bank, and I tried attaching my other bank to it. And the only way the other bankers, it was part of being a banking issue that Mission Fed here in San Diego, the only way that Venmo will see it is by way of credit card. I could have done it that way, but if you do it by or debit card, they charge you, I think it was like 1% or something.
right.
But because some people who pay me, it's like, wait a minute, I don't want that going through my Venmo. I don't want to pay tax on it because it's going to go into my business account. So I called Venmo and they said, well, this is a personal account. I just didn't bother to correct them. And so you can set up a business account, and from what little I get, because I didn't want to push them, you can, I think, set up a business account, which probably would have cost me more, and a personal by using different banks. But
Right. So this is why I haven't set up my sisterhood with Venmo or WRJ, because I'm not willing to give up my cell phone.
Well, I don't think it was so much my cell phone because they just send it to Barbara
Use
Chancey.
the email address.
Well, no, it's not even an email. It's Barbara Chancey at barbara-chancey.com, I think. It was just something stupid I made up just to go to get it done. That's not even my email.
So anyways, when I first looked into Venmo, it looked like I had to give up my cell phone and I wouldn't be able to use it personally. And so we never set up Venmo that way. Zelle does not require you to give them, and it has to be a cell phone, a regular cell phone, a paid cell phone account. It can't be like a Google phone, which you can get for free. Right? A Google phone is a VoIP phone. You cannot use a VoIP phone
It's not a cell
to
phone.
set up an account. It has to be a paid cell phone account. So if your sisterhood has a paid cell phone account, then by all means use that instead of Venmo. But
I think it's more because you can only put one app on that, one Venmo app on there is the reason.
so yeah, that's yeah.
Because it'll get confused.
Well, and then the other problem with using a personal cell phone is that what happens when that person is no longer treasurer or whatever and wants to take their cell phone and go someplace else, and all these people have that cell phone number so yeah, I advise against giving out cell phone numbers, right? You can set up Venmo to use an email address and I recommend that, but it's a problem. So but this may change. So for Zelle, you have to have a cell phone to send money because they want to verify that it's a legitimate payment. But you're not giving out that cell phone to anyone else. So that's not as much of an issue. So, and I believe that that side of it, the cell phone can be used for another Zelle account as well. So that's not really a problem. So that's the theory that I have to give you. So next I was going to go into the practicalities of setting up a website button and what it takes to do that. So let me pause and ask if there's any questions before we go on. So, and while I'm thinking about that, if anyone wants a copy of these slides, then they should put their email into the chat and I will, or should I just automatically, I mean, Stacy, you have everyone's email address, right?
Actually, no, I don't, because it's the WRJ's account. So if
Oh,
that's a
all
great
right, so
idea, if
just put your
everybody can
email
their
address
name
into
and
the
email
chat.
address.
Put your email address into the chat and I'll send a copy of the slides to everyone, which it will have the example of setting up a website button that I'm about to go through. So, okay. So, okay. So let's say that my sisterhood, TAS Sisterhood wants to, well, this is actually an actual button that I set up to take payments for Bingotini when we did Bingotini. So whenever you're doing a button, there's kind of 3 steps that you need to collect information about the person who's paying. You need to provide payment options to them, and then you need to collect the payment. So this is a form that we set up on our website. The details of the form aren't important, but we collected the name of the person, we collected their email and their phone number, how many tickets they wanted. We were doing 50-50 chances, so how many 50-50 chances? We gave them a means of calculating the total, and we had them calculate the total cost. The website we use has a very limited form ability, but it's free. So that's what we did. And then we had a submit button. And when they click, so this is the collect information step, was a form on our website. There are lots of different ways to do that. And when they hit submit, then they were taken to this page, which gave them the payment options. You can pay by check, and this is how you pay by check. You can pay by Zelle. This is how you pay by Zelle. Or you can pay online using PayPal or credit card by clicking this button. Go ahead, Naomi.
What site did you use to set up the form? What did you use, a certain
So-
website, or what did you do to set up the form?
So our website, tssisterhood.org, is built using Weebly, which has since been bought out by Square, which
Okay.
I'm not happy about. They keep on trying to convince us to convert over, but we'd have to rebuild the entire website, and I'm not willing to do that. There's a lot of website builders out there, and they mostly work in similar fashions. They'll have widgets that you put on your website, and then you put text into it. They'll have a text widget. They'll have an image widget. They'll have a form widget. So I use the form widget to collect the information.
And that's with Square? That's what you're using, you use Square, even though it was Weebly, you use Square?
So Weebly is a website builder, and I put I put a PayPal buttons on it.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
So the third step is collecting payment. So if someone wanted to pay by check, they would send a check or Zelle. But if they wanted to pay using PayPal or credit card, they would click on this button and it would take them to this site. This, oh, back up. This is the PayPal generated button that you use, right? And it gives you the option of donating with PayPal or with a debit or credit card, but both of those go through PayPal. So PayPal generates this. So, and I'll show you how you put that on your website. So this is the third step, is collecting the payment.
What if I don't think my sisterhood has a website.
Okay, well, I'll talk about that in later on. Okay. So let me give you another example. So WRJ Pacific District has a donate button, and they do things in a slightly different order. They have their people choose what payment option they want, and then they collect information about the person, and then they collect payment. So you need to do those three steps, but you know, collecting the payment is usually last, but the other two can be in either order. So on the WRJ Pacific District site, you say you want to donate, and it says, okay, if you want to donate via credit card, you click this donate button. If you want to pay by check, you click this link and you get a different set of instructions. So if you click the donate button, then you get taken to this eye chart where you fill in lots of different information about what amount and who you're trying to honor and what your name is and all sorts of things. And you click next, and then you get taken to a second thing where you fill in even more pieces of information, your name and your address and where you live and your zip and your phone number. And then you click next again. And here's the collect payment button. In this case, when you click, I actually, not to diss WRJ Pacific District, but I actually have a problem with the fact that this looks like you will be paying via PayPal and doesn't indicate that you can pay with a credit card. So I've had people like bomb out at this point going, no, I want to pay with a credit card. Actually, if you click the green donate button, you get taken to a page where you have the option of paying with a credit card. So anyways. So
I have a question.
Jackie, Marlene has a question.
go ahead.
Is there any way to show what the payment is for?
On PayPal there is.
There's a memo line,
Yeah.
because I don't see that here, and
Oh.
that's been a problem for me.
It's before this point.
It depends on how it's set up, right? And I'll get to that. You can set up your button so that the person has an option to put in what it's for. So I'll show you where that is.
Okay,
So, okay, so this is the steps in setting it up. This is using PayPal. But I gotta figure that with Square, it would be something similar. I don't know. I haven't done it with Square. I've only done it with PayPal. So there are lots of web builders, Wix, Squarespace, Weebly. Like I said, they all work the same. There are form builders. So Weebly has a form that you can use built in it. You don't need to go to a separate application using Weebly. I'm sure Wix is the same way and Squarespace are the same. But if you're not paying lots of money for your account, they're very limited. There are form builders out there that you can use. WRJ Pacific District uses Wufoo. For free, you get 5 forms with up to 10 fields each. You're limited to 100 entries, so you'll have to consider whether that's a problem. For free, there's a limited set of features. You can pay money and then get more forms, more fields, more things. Google Forms is a good option. I have not researched Google Forms very much. But if you don't have a website, I believe you can set up a form in Google Forms and send people links to that form and then use that to collect the information. And there's a way to put a link to PayPal at the end. And like I said, I have not done this before, but near the end, I have 2 videos about using Google Forms and collecting payments that you can watch later on.
That's the way I do it with another congregation is I have their forms with all their credit card information that they've signed that they agree to pay X amount every month or quarter, whatever. And then I go in and charge their credit card either quarterly, monthly, half yearly. But unfortunately, I have to do the work instead of them. But that was the way it was originally set up, that they want, because people didn't want to do it themselves. They wanted it done.
Okay.
So we could do it that way. I don't really want to do it that way. Puts more on me.
Yes. Marlene?
Are you going to discuss Shoal Cloud at all?
No, I don't know anything about that. Sorry.
Okay.
It's a nightmare. All I have to say.
So I will mention that there's a couple of options for fundraising. WRJ Pacific District uses something called DonorBox. And I haven't set it up, so I don't know all that much about it. You can contact Julia if you want more information. It is free up to $1,000 per month. And then there's a transaction fee of 1.5% if you go over that. Now, be aware that DonorBox uses, PayPal, whatever processor you set up, and the transaction fee of 1.5% is on top of the PayPal fee, not instead of. So, and I went looking for the name of another one. There's something called Give Butter, which they use a model called donor tipping, where they solicit the person giving money to also give an amount to Give Butter. And if you use the donor tipping option, then it's free to your sisterhood. Or you can say, no, I don't want to do that. And then there's a processing fee, which they said ranges between 1.9 and 2.9%. So anyways, and again, that's on top of the PayPal fee. So, but either of those could make it a lot easier to set things up. You'll have to investigate that. So, but here's the process. If I want to set up a button on the website, then here's the process I go through. So step 0 is you can use the PayPal. PayPal has buttons built in, but you can make your own custom buttons. I like doing a custom, you saw the one before that said Bingo Teeny on it. I like custom buttons. I use a free program called GIMP to create buttons. So if you or someone who's good at doing image processing, then you can create your own custom buttons. So if you want to use a custom button, you create the custom button, you save the name with no spaces. It can be any image format, but if the background is transparent, it has to be a PNG file because PNG supports transparent backgrounds. So that's the pre-step. Step 1 is first you want to create your web pages. So you create the page where the PayPal button is going to be placed. So, we collected information and then we had a page where you can click on it to be taken to PayPal. So you create this button, everything except for the button itself, because you create all the rest of it. And then optionally, you can create a page where the user will be taking after they pay. So for Bingo Teeny, I made this very simple page that just said, thank you, see you at the temple. And you can create a page where the user will be taken if they cancel. So I created one that said, did you mean to cancel? And then it gave them their payment options again. You can send a check to this person, you can pay via Zelle, or you can click this button to go back to try your payment again. So you create those 3 pages and you save off the URL for those. Then step 2 is you use PayPal to generate what's called HTML code for the button. And here are the steps. You go to PayPal and log in there. You change the URL. I've never found a link to go to the buttons. I always just go to the top and change the URL to paypal.com/buttons. You're logged in, so it goes to a set of buttons just for you. And you scroll down and click the donate button. It looks like this over on the, there's like a whole bunch of styles of buttons you can choose from. So donate button works really well for Sisterhood. That will take you to a page where you either can share a link or a QR code or put a button on your website. So for a button, you would click this one. Then you have 2 options for buttons. You can use a generic PayPal button. So you'll get to a page that looks like this, where it has use a PayPal button style or choose your own button. So if you click use PayPal button style, then you pick your button size and whether to show accepted card logos. If you have your own button, then you click the use your own button style, and then it'll give you the option to drag and drop or browse to your button. You just drop the image file right in here. And then you'll have a continue button. So you click continue. So next, they're going to ask you a series of questions. They'll give you an option to upload your Sisterhood's logo. You can add an image. You can choose how to display the page. And then click, it's like a whole series of questions. You can choose the amount the donors can give, whether the donation can be recurring, whether to solicit an additional amount to offset the fees, whether the donor can specify the program it's going for. And then you click continue again. So then there's more questions, whether to get the donor's mailing address. And here, choose whether they can add a note. I would always recommend that you do this. So this is the answer to your question. So you can set up the button so it will give them the option of adding a note. You can put in personalized instructions, and this is where if you set up a website that the person is taken to when they cancel, or you set up one where they're taken to if they complete the payment, then you put in those URLs right here. So, and when then you finally get to a finish button, not a continue button, and that gives you this is HTML code. And you click the copy to clipboard, because that then gets pasted into the on your website where you want the button. You put a widget for custom HTML code. You put this code into that widget, and voila, the button, the image of the button that you created, or the PayPal button appears, and there you go. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it's doable. If your Sisterhood has a website and you want to set up a button, I think that if you do it once or twice, then you'll be like, oh, this is not that big a deal. And I'm happy to be there when you do it and say, yeah, you're doing it right. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, you're doing it right. So give me a call. We'll set up a time. Go ahead, Marlene.
Is this strictly for PayPal or is it also
It-
for Square?
This example is straight out of PayPal. I've never set it up for Square, so we don't use Square. But I gotta think that it'd be something pretty similar. The concepts have got to be pretty similar.
So we had PayPal and then we decided it was too expensive and switched to Square. And mostly because Judaica Shop also has Square. So
Mhm.
it felt like
Right.
it was consistent,
Yes,
but Square is more expensive now.
yes. Well,
Whatever.
especially if you get nonprofit status through PayPal.
Well,
So-
I think we did get nonprofit through Square. It's still expensive.
I didn't think that Square has a nonprofit now.
We talked to them about it. This was about a year and a half ago.
I didn't think that they had a reduction in fees but I could be wrong.
I think
Well, and
that,
like I said, everything changes.
yeah, I think the little thing that you put in your phone is what was discounted,
Yeah.
not the fees, on a daily basis. But I still don't see a place where it said you can put a note in there, but I don't see a place where it says, if you want the fees to be added on top so that the person that's using this convenience pays
But-
the convenience fee.
Yeah, that's one of the options.
Oh, it is?
Choose whether to solicit, oh, sorry. Choose whether to solicit, God, an additional amount to, this should say, to offset fees, not of offset fees. Sorry.
But it doesn't say what the percentage would be or,
It'll PayPal will give a suggested amount, which is never exactly what the fee is, but it's
it's
close.
closer.
The problem is it's also illegal to ask somebody, people do it, but it is illegal to ask somebody for the finance charge fee.
Why?
I thought that was true of credit cards. It's not clear to me that it's true of PayPal fees. I don't know.
I'm not sure what the reason is. It's probably because some congressman or somebody decided,
Right.
but I just know that it was brought up in another congregation, not that we don't ask. It's a preference.
Right.
You can choose to, we put it on the form, when they register for the year, do you want to donate 2% extra to cover our costs?
Right.
But
Technically, you're supposed to give a discount for cash and not increase it. Right.
right, but we don't take cash
But
necessarily.
I think if you make it optional, that might skirt the problem.
Well, yeah, it says, do you want to? But
Yeah.
yeah, you can't automatically do it, no. But just letting you know that it is actually illegal.
Yeah.
But people do it.
Oh, anyways, this is, I already said this, that the last step is once you've got your HTML code, you put the HTML code onto your website. In the website builder, there's a way to embed HTML into the website and you put it in and then you publish your website. So let me talk a little bit about setting up Zelle. You pick your email address, and I already talked about choosing an email address, and you set that email address up with your bank, so it's linked to your bank account. You go to ZellePay.com, select your bank, and then you'll be sent to a page specifically for your bank, where you'll log in and follow your bank's directions to turn it on. I would expect that you'd be able to go directly to your bank and get there, but I've always had to go to Zelle Pay and get through that way. So Wells Fargo gives you one login for all Wells Fargo accounts that you're associated with, which I hate because I'm associated with my sisterhoods and I'm associated with WRJ Pacific District, and it's one login for both of those. So, but so if I were to go to Zelle Pay and say Wells Fargo and then log in with my one account, then I would see something that looks like this for setting up an account, right? And it shows that my sisterhood is already set up with Zelle, all right? I could turn it off. And it gives me the options to set up the other things that are associated with Wells Fargo, which includes treasure.wrj@gmail.com, which I would like to set up with Zelle. Unfortunately, Wells Fargo has a requirement that people who are associated with the account, not anyone who's associated with the account can set up Zelle. Only the administrator can set up Zelle, which we didn't even know that there was an administrator. So when I went to set up the sisterhood with Zelle, and they said, oh no, you can't do it. Only the administrator can do it. So I called them up and I said, okay, who's the administrator? They said, oh, we won't tell you. Well, excuse me, thanks. When I finally walked into a bank and worked with a banker, then we found out that it was a past president who had not been president for like 10 years and wasn't on any account. Her name was nowhere associated with it. She was the administrator. So we jumped through a bunch of hoops to take care of that, and we were able to get it set up. I don't know if other banks have the same rule, but be forewarned that you may find out all sorts of things when you go to set up Zelle. Right now, we have not yet set up WRJ Pacific District because the administrator is our president, and somehow she's lost online access. So we're working on getting that back. She walked into a branch and still doesn't, I don't know. Don't get me started. Anyways, it should be easy, but
With
be
Wells
forewarned,
Fargo,
it might not be.
not with Wells Fargo.
So, in general, I actually like Wells Fargo, but there's like 3 specific things that drive me crazy about them. So that's one of them. So, and then once you have it set up, then get people to start sending you money. Marlene?
For Venmo, at least with my bank, which is Umpqua, it has a limit of $350 that you can
Per week,
Venmo
right?
somebody per,
Per transaction?
yeah, per transaction.
Oh, I was hearing that there were weekly limits. Like
That's quite possible
$500.
With
Yeah.
Ven- With Venmo?
with Venmo. For my bank, it was 350 limit.
That wouldn't work for my business because I could do a tax return more than that.
Yeah.
And I do.
Maybe this is a personal thing, so maybe it
Well,
is
you don't
different for
know.
business.
No, okay, so my bank account is business, but the Venmo account is, according to Venmo, is personal.
Well, and it does seem to be bank dependent, that different
Okay.
banks have different limits. So I have some,
Does Zelle have a limit?
Yeah. with
Depending on
Zelle, I
which
think it's
bank.
a weekly limit.
Well, Zelle has a limit in the very beginning that's pretty low until you get established, and then I don't remember what my sister said because we were doing something, and it was like 250 a week in the beginning for a few weeks, and then it went up, but I don't know
Oh,
what it is.
so I have some websites for you. Here's the Zelle and the Venmo, which it didn't occur to me until I realized that the Zelle is not Zelle.com, but ZellePay.com. So I said that that if you're interested in using Google Forms, if you don't have a website, you can use Google Forms. So watch these videos. This first one is about setting up a form to collect information and then adding a PayPal link at the end. And the second one is something called Payable Forms. It's an add-on. And I looked for pricing information and couldn't find anything. So I don't know if it's free or not. But it did seem like I watched the video. It seemed like a really good feature. I can put these in the chat if you would like.
I just took a picture of it.
Okay. So, and I'll get to you in a second, Marlene. I want to recommend TechSoup. If you can get your, our Sisterhood and Temple have the same EIN. So we got the Temple associated with TechSoup, and then we kind of rotate around between the Temple and Sisterhood and Men's Club. Whoever needs it then changes the email address. TechSoup has discount software and hardware for nonprofits. So, for example, QuickBooks is $78 for a license for one copy. You can get online, I think you can get 5 seats for, I don't know, you can look. But that's way cheaper than if you're buying it.
Actually, I think for nonprofit, my other congregation, somehow they got it for $50 for a year. They got online QuickBooks for $50 for the year.
Right, but then you got to pay every year.
Well,
right.
so that's a-
We
That's-
get QuickBooks and we'll use it for 5 years before we'll,
that's desktop.
yeah, this is 78 is desktop, right? 168 for 3 licenses, that's desktop. So, right, and I think I'm, still on 2016 or something, because the features that we use don't change. You can get Constant Contact for $56. That is a yearly fee. And there's lots more. There's hardware that, yeah, check it out. And the other thing I'm going to mention is that if you participated in the WRJ Pacific District silent auction, they used a site called Galabid, and it didn't cost WRJ Pacific District anything. So usually online silent auction sites are at least $1,000, maybe more than that, for a year subscription. But Galabid uses there's a word for it, which I'm blanking on, where they solicit donations from the people who make the bids, and they can donate as much as they want or as little as they want. They don't have to donate anything. So anyways, and so I recommended it to my temple. They're using it for their silent auction, and the person who's setting it all up raves about it. So so I can recommend that.
So I just wanted to ask, since you said you were going to have this PowerPoint available for us,
Yes.
this particular page will be in there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So, okay, so, and this page, which has my contact information.
Jackie, I just want to thank you so much. I've had so many people ask me for this particular workshop for so long. This is because we really are moving away from taking checks. And this was so helpful. I was trying to monitor you all to see if you were raising your hand, but honestly, I was writing so many, you can't see it, but I was writing tons of pages of my own notes. I got so much from this, so thank you. Does anybody have it? We're here at 8 o'clock almost, but does anybody have a couple more questions before we head out?
Naomi.
Yes, regarding our membership, we have like a menu of different things on ours, and it's hard to do that with PayPal. And that's why we have been using a check, because we have different levels. We have basic, we have non-temple sisterhood members. Our temple has a level like Circle of Honor and Mitzvah members. Their dues are included in their membership. And then we have different levels, like we have gold and silver members, whether they're basic membership and those sort of things. So we have several different membership dues levels. So that, do you have any recommendations on how we do that? Because I did talk to somebody about Square, but it gets to be very expensive with like the 3% and then
Right.
the 30 cents and whatever else. So we do have a yurt site fund that we have people contribute to when they have yurt sites. So we could do something with Zelle for yurt sites. If people don't want to send in
Mhm.
checks, we can set that up for yurt sites because that's something separate. But when we have our membership, we have like a form. We even include all of our camperships and things like that as well on our membership. But just for the membership aspect of it, we have like 5 or 6 different menu items on there, and we don't know how to incorporate that into a system like PayPal or anything like that. We don't want to be stuck paying for all the fees. If people use it, we can, for the credit, if they use a credit card fee, then they pay that credit card fee that since they're using a credit card. So do you know how we can do that?
So now if you have a form, paper form, right?
Yes, we do.
So you could set up a Google form that would basically be an electronic version of the paper form.
Okay.
Then your options at that point would be to accept online payment, and then you would be charged the 2.2. If you set up with PayPal as a nonprofit, you'd be charged the 2.2% plus 30 cents. Or just take checks and Zelle or Venmo, which would not be cost.
At this point.
Yeah,
But
because
if
because people have to like, if we did something, if they could check off the boxes, that wouldn't be a problem. We just want to know if somebody says, I'm paying, like say they're paying, they're a lifetime sister member. We do have a lifetime thing
Right.
people paid years ago. And if they want to do that, plus they want to give, they want to be a silver member, they would pay like $45 to be a silver member. So they would have to put in the notes, I'm a lifetime member and I'm paying $45 for silver
Mhm.
member or something like that. So we would know whatever, I mean, they would have to be specific and they'd have to remember that, or we would have to contact them saying, oh, you're a life member. What was this extra money for? That kind of thing. So it's like extra follow-up if they don't put that in, correct?
Right, but you could make that a field on the
The Google
form saying,
Okay,
you just have to be creative on the form so
Okay.
that check this box if you're collecting information about them. So one of the information you would collect is you're a lifetime member. And then
okay.
if there's still an amount, then you could put in a place on the form which is fill in what this amount is for.
So there's no way for them to pay the fee that we
No.
pay?
No, there is.
Okay, because I know with Shul Cloud at the temple, they use Shul Cloud. And we didn't want to piggyback onto them because we want to be a separate entity.
You
We
want to
have an
be a
issue
separate. Yep.
with that. We don't want them to kind of know everything. We do let them know what's going on, but we just don't want them to have their hand in the cookie jar along with us. So they have Shul Cloud, but when they have something you pay by credit card, the fee is automatically paid by us, not by the temple per se. So we could do the same thing where we could add that, as you said, in that one
Right.
screen, that we could add that fee, but is it a choice or can we add that and they automatically have to pay it if it's credit card?
So for PayPal, when you set up the button,
Mhm.
one of the options is, give the participant the option. I don't think you can make it mandatory. Well, you could put a thing on the form that calculates the fee, and you could make it, increase it by that amount, with the caveat about that, the legality of that. But PayPal itself will give you the option of having a field that says, and actually the field, it'll say, add an additional amount to cover the PayPal fee, and they have to uncheck that. It comes up checked. They have to uncheck it to not do that.
Okay, yeah, because we don't want to be stuck with paying, depending on how much they give, if it's like $300 and then there's.
Right, then the
there-
fee, it
And the
adds up.
fee is like 3%, and it's like, okay, it's, and you get so many of those, not saying we will, but we just want to make sure that we're not hit for so much because, every dollar helps us, but also helps the temple. That money goes to the
Right.
temple and families for camperships or whatever sort of thing. So, okay. Thank you. That really helps. I wasn't sure what to do. I heard of the Google Doc, the Google
Forms.
forms. That would be helpful in trying to figure out how to do all this.
You have them send that in and then the payment comes later.
No,
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
and I just wanted to add, Naomi, that I agree with Jackie, using a Google form. I actually created that before quarantine for our temple for the same reason, for our sisterhood, for the same reason that we had a lot of different areas and fields and like Jackie said, you really have to get creative with it. The only thing is I didn't know how to add a PayPal at that time. So then at the end, I would just say, you know, I would have put a comment in there about like, you can send your check and then
Mhm.
our temple's address. But now that I know that you can add PayPal link, I'll go ahead and do that. But the Google Forms is great for everything that you just listed.
Okay, because we send out, what we do is we do a full mailer like in
Mhm.
July. We still send out paper because there are a lot of people in our community that prefer to send a check, don't want
Mhm.
their information out in cyberspace. So we do that as well, but we could also, in that, we can put that please go to this area, and then they could click on it and then pay that way if they feel more comfortable, like immediately, where they don't have to worry about a
Mhm.
check.
You
And-
can also ask,
Pardon me?
you can also ask for their credit card information and then physically do it yourself for them.
Yeah, they do that through the temple. A lot of times they'll call the temple and pay through the temple.
Because every one of you is frozen. No, you pay through your sisterhood button.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, this is good to know because it's gonna be easier because we could do the paper for anybody who wants to pay by check, and then we can set something up. I'll have to figure that. The only
Right.
thing is, the only problem we have is that, you know, I'm gonna be stuck doing this probably forever, like I've been doing everything else, like financial secretary for the past 15, 16 years. So it's like, okay, I kind of know all this stuff, but then it's like, okay, who else is gonna take it on? And then I'll have, you know, I'll be like 105 years old, still sitting there doing all this stuff. So it's like, you know, it's gonna be a never ending thing.
So I hear there's going to be a wonderful workshop at area event for Southern California on July 17th on succession planning. So the next workshop.
Good luck with that, with our sisterhood. We have the same people regurgitating. We can't, it's hard to get new people with our group because a lot of the women are with the JCC, you know, with that group. So it's you know, it's like women's voices and all that stuff. So a lot of them are there. They're members of our temple, but not willing to participate with sisterhood. So that's kind of. what
Well,
we're
Well,
going-
I hope that from this workshop, Jackie, I cannot thank you enough again. Thank you for doing this. Because I hope now you'll at least have some wider options. You'll have diversity. You can still take checks, but now you'll be able to do other things. And I know that a lot of your sisterhood members are probably asking for these things. So thank you so much for coming tonight. Again, Jackie gave you her phone number and her email, and we'll be sending this out to Yammer and to our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks too. And then Jackie will send you the slide deck. So thank you so much for coming. And Jackie, thank you again so much.
And Stacy, I'll send you the slide deck to post on Yammer.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
You too, Stacy.
Night.
Great program.
Thank you. Thanks for coming,
Thanks, Carol.
I really liked what you presented, Jackie. It was very well thought out, and I can't wait to get the PowerPoint so I could actually, because I've been taking notes and then I got really lost, so I'm gonna have to go through the PowerPoint. But
I can't show you, but I can't do
you
that.
do.
Here. I
Yeah.
did pages and pages in it.
And this is my first year as treasurer, and I'm not a bookkeeper, so it's a little daunting, I have to admit.
Oh, I can stop recording.
Oh.
I always forget. It's just gonna keep on going. So